Nog ergens die geldkist van Noah. Ik heb die ergens gezien. Oh. Laat maar, ik pak wel een paar boeken. Yo, hoi.
Hey, can you hear me?
Hello? Hey.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. Just give me 2 seconds.
Yeah.
Rearrange my microphone.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah.
I can do this.
Yo. Hey.
What's up?
Yes. How are you?
I'm good. It's been some time already. Hey.
Yeah. Are you in? Is there still a total lockdown in New York?
Pretty much. Yeah. How's it
Yeah.
in Rotterdam? Well, you're in Rotterdam right now. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I actually have a little cottage in the outskirts, in the countryside, which is close to the border. And as soon as the kids were not allowed to go to school, we directly basically fled out of the city. So we are in the middle of the forest, homeschooling the kids every morning, and then
That's awesome.
yeah, and then of course I've got my regular job as well, right? So I try to finish that as well before at least 2 p.m. And then the rest of the afternoon we spend in the outdoors, pretty much, you know, running. I bought my kids some mountain bikes, so they're out on the trails biking, and yeah, so it's really good. But it's a tiny house. It's 55 square meters. So I just had to kick out the whole family so I can have a quiet hour here with you. So, but it's for us. I would say Corona so far is okay.
Oh, I am honored.
Yeah.
That's cool. That's cool to hear. I mean, like, because over here it seems like the protocol is getting more and more serious. Like, I haven't looked at this week or so, but for example, like they've made you pretty much can't go outside without wearing masks now. Otherwise, people really look at you funny. Before it was kind of like, if you want to wear it, it's up to you.
Yeah.
Now it's like everywhere you go, they don't let you enter without mask. And they're really regimented about putting tape like in every supermarket. Like you have to stay 6 feet away from each other.
Oh yeah.
But I saw like a report from Sweden. Like it seems like they're doing really well over there without any sort of protocol at all.
In Sweden,
have you seen that?
No, I've not seen that. I know Germany is doing quite well.
They're not in lockdown at all. Like people are still like going to cafes and stuff.
Oh yeah. Oh wow.
Oh really?
Maybe it's the sauna use they do in Scandinavia, right? Maybe they sweat this coronavirus out. Maybe that's the trick. Yeah, I know Germany.
That was the cure, Bob. We just needed to sweat it out.
Yeah. But you guys in the US, you go with faces now, right? So of course, Trump was it every Friday? He did this big show every Friday, 2-hour long, speeching about all his achievements and what he has done. And are you following any of that, or you think it's?
I follow very, very little of it, but I only saw people kind of like take his words out of context and say that he wanted to inject disinfectant into the bloodstream. So everybody made it super viral on the internet. I was like, okay, this is why I try not to stay away from the news sometimes, you know?
Yeah. And he's doing these 2-hour long stage appearances, right? And it's a long time as well to catch up on, right? Yeah. So where are you now in New York?
I mean, I feel like between the I mean, I'm just staying in my apartment in Brooklyn, pretty much just similar to your practice of like kind of doing stuff outside, running, biking and stuff. Since, you know, my routine was mainly doing jiu-jitsu most of the time before, right? Like especially in New York, my daily routine is kind of designed around, I go to pro training, I go to evening training, and that's the bulk of my schedule already is just designated around being at the gym. So it's really been like a topsy-turvy in terms of like reassessing and evaluating like, oh my God, is it 180 lifestyle change in a way for me?
Yeah.
And for many other people, of course, you know.
Yeah, so all the gyms are closed, I guess, as well, right? In the US still.
So I started to see some people like in California, they're kind of resisting orders because like there's a stay-at-home order where people recommend that you stay home and you don't go out if it's not necessary. Some gyms did reopen in California. I think there's a new wave of people starting to speak up, saying that, you know, we kind of need to start to adapt and that we can't just stay at home the whole time. It's not a long-term measure, but you can for a lot more normal people.
Yeah, I think in the end of the day, we all will catch the virus, right? It's just you want to spread it out as much as you can. And for the younger people, for me, for instance, my parents are a little bit older, you know, so it's scary to, you know, to visit them. And
of course,
if you are sitting in California and your family is far away, then and you're young and fit and you're eating healthy foods, right? Then why not go to the gym and do some rolling, right?
I think it's just more like morally, what are your human values, you know? Because like I feel like a lot of young people can get away with a lot in this time just because younger, stronger immunity and stuff. But like, of course, the social impact of other people. Like originally at the beginning of lockdown, I also contemplated going back to Hong Kong because they've already kind of experienced coronavirus for a little while, similar to Singapore. But also, like, for example, in my shoes, my family members are a bit older and my grandmother is also, she's currently undergoing chemotherapy. So like I would really put her at risk if I go back, you know? Sure. So I think it's more, as much as we all like love jiu-jitsu and we have this certain attachment to our daily routine, it's like, but what actually does matter? Are you that selfish?
That's true. And, you know, it's a good time as well to, you know, heal that particular injury. And you know, I see your pull-up bar as well in the background. And I mean, I guess there's always, you always find a way to stay fit, I would say, right? So Margot, so your family is your family is in Hong Kong or in London, because you've been born and raised in London, right?
Yeah, so I was born and raised in London. My father's from Italy and my mother is from Hong Kong. So I have family members in each of these different places. I would say like majority of the time more recently in recent years that I spent a lot of time in Hong Kong. So I had a lot of close contact with the family members in Hong Kong. But right now it's Hong Kong, Italy, England. So it's very split up. And I can kind of like just communicate with them a little bit and understand like, oh, okay, like this is how this country is conducting themselves in the lockdown too.
Yeah. So exactly. So you've been growing up in the UK. I guess traveling a lot to Italy as well, I assume. You speak any Italian as well?
Conversationally, but actually like I haven't been to Italy so much in like throughout my lifetime, like the most recent visit was in 2018, and not even to like my family's hometown. I went to Rome for a couple of days to train a little bit. But I would say over the years, I really religiously went back to Hong Kong every year, but to Italy, not so much, unfortunately. But I would love to after the lockdown situation with COVID calms down and stuff too.
Yeah, it's a beautiful country, and the food is amazing as well, right? So I guess
absolutely up on the Mediterranean diet, you know. So
yeah. Better you go to Italy than to Holland, right? Our cuisine is less less popular.
I still have to learn more about the cuisine of Holland.
We have a lot of potatoes and veggies. We actually have quite a boring diet, I would say. But especially if you compare it to Italy, right? The Italians, they make some good food. So
it's a little bit like with British cuisine, you know.
Yes.
We like to talk about it a little bit, but it's like shepherd's pie, fish and chips.
Yeah. They have some brilliant pop food.
Like that's culture.
Yeah. That is true. So did you do any sports while growing up in London as a kid?
Yeah, absolutely. I had a more classical martial arts background growing up. So since I was about 6, I had been in various different types of Chinese martial arts. Like I studied Wushu, I studied Wing Chun. I ended up, when I was in my early teens, I started training in Kendo and stuff too. So I did end up cross-training in a lot of more traditional disciplines. But with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, this was a little bit later on. I started Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu just about when I finished high school. It was like the end of me being 18, pretty much. And now I'm 26, turning 27 this year. So that's my Jiu-Jitsu journey so far. I kind of I think when I was growing up, there was this idea in me that I wanted to try everything. You know, even though I was mainly, my interest in martial arts always existed, but I kind of wanted to try baseball and basketball. I just kind of wanted to try everything and like really experience it. And I think a lot of kids do, you know, it's like even in the physical education classes that you go to at school, they really encourage diversity in sport. And I think being exposed to as many different things as possible, in particularly at a young age, is so beneficial, because you see like in this modern society, especially, like I think we're getting more and more out of touch with our bodies, especially as we progress into adult life. We lose the idea of what it means to play and to just try something new for the sake of it. You know, there's always like a reason, like I have to get fit, or I have to be good at this, you know, there's like this certain objective. Whereas like as a kid, I think it was really such a beautiful time just to try things,
explore,
because it's fun.
Yeah,
absolutely. And I think for me, the very big attraction of jiu-jitsu is kind of this element of play. You know, it kind of reminds me of like, we can almost stay youthful in the arts. And of course, it's not just through jiu-jitsu that we can experience this. Like you can experience this through even CrossFit, if you can make the connection for yourself.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I think for a kid, for sure, it's good to explore as many sports as possible, right? And ultimately find a sport you're talented in and you enjoy doing. So
absolutely.
So your dad or your mom, or what inspired you to actually explore these different martial arts?
To be honest, I would say both of my parents are really not sporty types. They're artsy, but they're not very sporty. So there wasn't a lot of inspiration from them to actually go into sports. But I always seem to have some sort of interest with martial art movies, like the Hong Kong martial art movie kind of scene, you know, like with really inspirational icons of our generation, like Jet Li, Jackie Chan, Bruce Lee, like all those guys, Sammo. I think it was also like my my grandfather on my Chinese family side, he was in the Hong Kong police force, and he had trained in various different martial arts too. And unfortunately, I didn't have like a very close relationship with him, but I always had heard these stories about him, about like he was actually even classmates with Bruce Lee, like in his early teens. So like when I heard all these stories, like, oh my god, what? Bruce Lee, what? Oh my god, that's so amazing. So you know, like, and I'm just like telling all my friends in school, like without any context, I'm like, I don't know, they sat next to each other in the classroom. How cool is that? Like Bruce would always do his drawings next to him, and he would like not pay attention in class, and just like kind of like it felt very familiar, you know, and it was just such a cool story for me to tell. Yeah, I just always felt so inspired watching the movies, and I was like, man, I really want to move like that. I want to try it because it looks cool. It looks fun.
Yeah.
I think, you know, as with anything, like even if we don't just keep it to the field of sports and movement, isn't that what we all aspire for? You know, like working at a job that we really like trying to experience as many things as possible so that we can really say, hey, I really like this. This is what I want to do.
Yeah,
you know?
But that's, I guess,
I think the initial influence was from movies.
Yeah, that's cool. But it's exactly as you said, right? But people, I would say, they are trained already in school, right? To be these working robots, I would say. You know, it's, you have to go to school, you have to go to the university, and you have to land this big job and drive a fancy car and buy a house and get married and have kids and all that stuff. And I guess before you know it, you're in this big hole, right? And you lost the sort of touch, I would say, right, with what you really want. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to speak with you as well, right? Because as for me as an outsider, of course, I've met you a couple of times, but you, I mean, you're chasing your dream, right? You fell in love with BJJ, traveling the world. You're very successful in doing so as well, and you're a coach. You coach people along the way as well. It's very, very motivating, I would say, and that was one of the reasons as well I wanted to speak with you, right?
Thank you.
How you started that journey, and did people inspire you along the way on how to live your life, or
I got told no a lot.
Oh, yeah.
But the thing is, when people tell me no, or they kind of like tell me, oh, I don't think it's a good idea, it almost strengthens my resolve to want to do it even more. Like I've always been that sort of person. Like if you say no, it's not a good idea, I'm like, really? Okay, now I need to do it even more. But I mean, let me bring it back to the beginning of the journey a little bit more. Like I wasn't always so certain that this would be 100% successful. Although I always say to people that I think I'm slightly deluded or delusional, to the point that I really think that I can do anything that I put my mind to, you know? I always saw myself kind of doing something very unconventional. I remember already when I was in, I don't know what the school system is like in Holland, but in the UK, we call each grade like year 1, year 2, year 3, or like grade 1, grade 2. So the Americans say grades and the British say year. I already knew from like year 4, year 5. So I was like, maybe, how old was I in year 4? I want to say 11-ish. I remember I was with my dad at a train station one day, just going to pick up my mom. And I remember I was like, I'm going to go to university, but I'm probably not going to use my degree. I'm going to end up doing something really, really bizarre and unconventional. And that was already implanted in my head, you know? And look what happened. In reality, this really happened, you know? Like I hold an engineering degree, and I didn't really, I use it in like, you know, the critical thinking kind of way, like on a daily basis, like how I think obviously has been molded by that, but I'm in something completely different. like at the beginning, it's really hard at white belt and blue belt to say, hey, I want to become a professional at this and I want to make a living off of this, because you're just so novice in the journey, and you can't make a living as a white belt off of jiu-jitsu. You need to have some sort of innovation. And I think I was more lucky at the time that I had age on my side, you know, that I had time to be able to invest just in training. I was still studying and stuff, so I had that advantage at the time. At blue belt, I started to take it a little bit more seriously, but already when I started telling people that like, yeah, I want to do this full time, I want to be a full-time competitor, I had a lot of critics, like even my parents, like they were strongly disapproving of me going into jiu-jitsu full-time. They're like, you've invested so much time into your education, all these years, all this money into your education, and you want to do this, and it's just so uncertain. There's going to be a lot of struggle. And it was like almost like I felt I had to block it out to an extent. I really didn't want to accept that.
But that's so powerful, right?
That I couldn't try, you know.
So what age? So what age did you realize? Okay, I'm good in the I'm good at this, and I want to chase the jiu-jitsu full time.
I think it was already roughly, I was a year and a half, 2 years into the sport, and I had a lot of success really early on, pretty fast. And I realized, you know, like with a certain approach that it's really easy to achieve exponential growth. If you're very smart about it, you don't necessarily need to batter your body to smithereens all the time in order to get results. And I started to fall in love with the process of not necessarily winning, but to see that my moves worked, that I was able to apply my own game and to really read my opponent in this very special way with the language, that our communal language of jiu-jitsu.
In the heat of the moment.
I think once I started winning like some of the Abu Dhabi qualifiers, absolutely, because it's such a instantaneous thing, you know, like it's not like even in chess you can kind of look at the board for a certain period of time. In jiu-jitsu, if you look at your opponent too long, time's up, you kind of lost already, you know. So it was relatively early on that I made the decision to go full-time. It was just more like, you can call yourself a full-time practitioner, just more after that, how do you come to terms with making a living? Because there's so many people that want to go full-time, you know, and if you all do it the same way, it's almost the same as what you were saying about, like, you know, when we all go to school, there's like a certain like society model of life that, oh, you should do this, you should achieve this to get XYZ status so that you can have like a family and you can have a nice car and this and that. So like similarly in jiu-jitsu, you know, like if everyone wants to have the same, you have to try and live below like a certain means of life. You should like try and work at front desk and stuff. And I didn't mind struggling at the beginning, but I really didn't want to follow like a traditional mold. And at the time, it was also very unconventional to be like, even a purple belt and teaching was ludicrous. Like people would chat so much shit about people teaching who weren't a black belt, because they think, oh, you can only listen to a black belt, you know. They're trying to really listen to certain authorities, certain hierarchy. Whereas I personally think if you have good information, you have good information. If you have good understanding, no matter how long you trained, if you understand it, share it, you know. And I think like this whole idea of hierarchy that doesn't serve us in our learning. You know, I've spoken to a lot of people in the jiu-jitsu community, like who are also teachers and stuff. You can learn from a blue belt. You can put your ego aside for a moment and really learn from everybody. You know, you can learn from, even from a white belt. There's nothing to say that you can't do that. But I think I faced some challenges at the beginning also, trying to teach so early on. And unfortunately, like, you know, I've trained with a lot of world-class people. So luckily I also have like people's recognition of that. But I
Yeah.
would have also really loved for people to kind of believe in my teaching regardless
Yeah,
of these
exactly.
names,
These,
you know?
these big names. Yeah. So you started teaching from purple belt, or did you started as a blue belt already teaching?
I mean, like at Blue, I would say I was mainly teaching just my friends. So
Oh, yeah.
just kind of like within the club and stuff, I would show people stuff, like even like
Yeah.
higher belts, like even at the time, even brown and black belts would ask me because they would see, you went to this gym, what did you learn there? Like every time I would come back from a trip, people would be asking me like, oh, like what new techniques do you have to show? Like you have to show me, you have to show me. But yeah, I would say like I started teaching more seriously in early purple belts. I was a purple belt, I think, for roughly 3 years or so.
Okay.
Yeah, so I started trying to teach more workshops, especially in Asia, since the scene is a lot younger over there, you know, and the general growth and development over there has been much slower than other regions of the world. And I think sometimes the thirst for information and knowledge is greater over there because there's less access, you know? And when you have less access, I think you're a lot more open-minded in certain regards to, so-and-so is here and they train with this way, we should really listen, you know? Whereas like, I think when we're a little bit more privileged, it's like, why should I listen to you, you know? A little bit of this attitude.
So is that when Nomadic ID was created as well? When you started coaching and teaching more and more? Because do I put it correctly? Nomadic ID.
Yeah, no, it's perfect. You've pronounced it perfectly.
Okay.
So like the original backstory to that, in 2015, I was getting ready for the Abu Dhabi World Pro. I had won the qualifiers at Blue Belt. And at the time, if you won the qualifiers, they would pay everything for you, like including your flight, your hotel, the registration and stuff. So they would send you to Abu Dhabi. So I had won the UK qualifiers that year. But 2 weeks before the actual tournament, before having to fly out to Abu Dhabi, I sustained a really bad foot injury. And it was devastating for me. You know, it's 2 weeks before a major competition. Nobody wants to sprain something, let alone break something. And I had broken my foot in 2 places. So I couldn't really walk.
How did you do that? Was it like?
It was a bit of a freak accident. I was sparring with my instructor in London at the time, and I was kind of going for like a open guard scissor sweep, but as he landed to defend, his knee landed on top of my foot, so my knee was going to the left, my foot went to the right. So unfortunately it was just an accident, and it's a combat sport, things happen. So during this time, rather, that I was recovering from the injury and just waiting to heal so I could get back onto the mats, I came up with the concept of Nomadic ID, but I wouldn't say that I completely understood what I was trying to create at the time. It was more just this idea of being like global and remote, you know, like this almost this idea of just like being able to work from anywhere, train from anywhere. That I think what I think about most is learning rather than even just jiu-jitsu, is learning. Because actually one of my objectives with Nomadic ID, or maybe it will face a name change in the future, is actually in education. Like how can we create a better education system and not make it so linear like the traditional education system, you know, like how can we really allow people to study what they want, you know, not necessarily, oh, you should study this because this will get you far, you know? Really based more around people's passions. So if you wanted to really study like game design, then why do you have to wait so far along? Why do you have to do all these traditional things necessarily, you know? Of course, there's certain things we need certain fundamentals, but I think we can really allow that to happen much earlier on. And also, again, encouraging more room for creativity and not just spoon feeding people information all the time. But yeah, so the concept was born in 2015. And then later on, when I went back to Hong Kong, more so like in 2017-ish, I started to think more about it again. I was like, I'm traveling here and there for competition. You know, I have so much access to all these different countries just because I have to be in certain places in the world throughout the year. And I meet so many people throughout the year, like whether it's at different gyms, at different tournaments and stuff. And this idea of like an information exchange started to, like, it just was born in me. I was like, what is the most, like, what way can we utilize digital technology with learning, with people's expertise? Like, how can we share more online, especially, of course, more so in the jiu-jitsu context? So I started trying to like form a small network within, like, especially more so female teachers, because there's so many male teachers online, you know, that have subscriptional sites and stuff. I thought it would have been a really nice initiative to have a female-led group of teachers that would basically share what they know online and start this idea of online coaching a little bit more. And as you can see, like now with the whole lockdown situation, everybody is resorting to online coaching, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So you're busy doing so now? You're doing a lot of online coaching, especially now in lockdown, right? Everybody is sitting at home.
I think now my current interest is more in this talk show. It's like after you asked me to do this podcast episode, I pretty much this week and next week is completely booked with people that I'm talking to also.
Oh yeah, I know.
Like just people that I've trained for years and stuff too.
Yeah, I know you're busy, and I appreciate you taking the time as well. I know that in 25 minutes you have to go as well, so so it's good that at least.
It's my pleasure.
Yeah. It's good that the Corona at least it creates a lot of opportunities for you. Then I would say as well, right? Hey, so Margot, I mean,
there's always opportunities, you know.
Yeah. So entering a competition, right? I think everybody is experiencing these nerves. So what's the conversation like in your head before entering the mat?
Okay, let me break it down for you. So
yeah,
I think the competition can be broken down in several different stages, you know, because there's, if we're talking directly day of competition, then we have to kind of break it down into, like, for example, if I'm traveling to California for a competition, then there's like me in the hotel or in the Airbnb, and then there's me in some sort of transportation, whether it's an Uber or a train, whatever, on the way to the venue. And then there's me at the venue, right? So there's 3 different stages.
Yeah.
All throughout, I'm really relatively calm. I don't really get nervous these days. Of course, I can't really say that for the past, but I feel like the reason that I can stay so calm in each of those stages too is because I kind of break down the process like this in my head. Like in training, I know it's very hard to pass my guard. I know it's very hard to sub me. If I already take away these 2 factors from the game, it means that I can purely focus my intention on trying to sweep you or trying to submit you, you know? So I can solely focus on the attack, the offensive side. Yeah. But if I had to worry about attacking and also defending, then I have so much on my plate, you know? It's just like if we put it more in context of a daily life scenario, I have like finances to worry about, and then I have a family to worry about, and this to worry about, and that to worry about. It's just like bzzz, it's kind of like an overload. It's too much stimulation, you know. So I kind of manage that by eliminating my field of focus, so I can just kind of zoom in, and I only have one thing to focus on.
Okay.
So when I actually get to the final stage at the competition, like, oh, I need to step on the mat, I need to do the weigh-in. It's just one thing at a time. I don't project ahead like, oh my God, it's like this guy in the finals is going to be so hard. It's like one thing at a time. Okay, I cleared weigh-in. Oh, okay, I cleared the uniform check. Great. Okay, now fight one. Stay easy, stay loose. You know, one thing at a time. You really try and stay present in the moment rather than trying to like project ahead. The guy in the finals, like he won last year. Oh, it's going to be difficult. You know, you're already kind of setting yourself up for failure when you think about if you think in this way about the finals and the guy is going to be difficult. It's like he won last year because I wasn't there. You know, it's also how you talk to yourself, the language that you use. You know, yeah. I think this is a really important skill to develop. You know, like how you talk to yourself.
So you develop that skill over time. I mean, the more competition you do, the better you ease with these.
It does come with experience, but I also think, you know, there's a lot of people who are very experienced who still face nerves, you know, so I'm not entirely sure that it's just purely down to experience. I think when I was a little bit more novice, like a little bit more early blue belt and stuff, especially when going to international competition, you know, there's always this kind of perception, oh my God, there's so-and-so from this gym and they're training with like the best of the best every day. They're going to be so tough, you know, this judgment already, and you know, oh, they're going to be so tough. But then when you actually get there, like, it wasn't so bad. What's this? You know, it's again, building up this image of the scenario instead of like, okay, I'm going to arrive there. What I should focus on is what I'm actually in control of. I can't really control what my partner will do or what my opponent is going to do, you know, but what I can control what I train. I can control really trying to understand like, okay, I don't have too many moves in this position. Let me improve my understanding of the offensive reactions and defensive reactions. If you can break it down a little bit more like this, then I feel like it's very difficult to be nervous because it's down to your preparation, you know? I think the mental self-talk is, again, it's important even to have conversations like this that we're having now, you know? I think also I try to have more of these conversations, like even like this next fortnight, because I want more people to have the awareness. I want more people to be exposed to this sort of thought, you know, whether it's more like in a competition light or from a learning point of view. Because like I think a lot of conversations I've been having lately is about how to focus less on winning and how to focus more on learning. Because if you're more focused on growth in general, the likelihood of you winning is much higher, I feel. Of course, like nobody likes to lose. You don't meet someone like I am the greatest loser ever. You know, it's like it just doesn't happen. You know, like, I love losing. Nobody says that. You know, so innately, I think everybody likes to win.
Of course.
But what you decide to focus on is winning a byproduct of focusing on learning. I think this is a little bit more my mentality.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And you have developed that, I guess, as well over the years. I remember my first tournament was in Shenzhen in a shopping mall as a white belt, and I lost already before entering the mat because I was speaking with him, the guy, and I knew that he won last year's tournament, and so I was already pretty much a loser. I lost already the match before I entered the mat, right? I guess if you remove that pressure and you see it as an exercise and not so much as a must win scenario, then I guess you have a little bit more ease in these scenarios, right?
Absolutely.
But still, it's still scary as hell, I would say. But yeah, I was wondering, you know, you have done so many competitions, you know. I mean, so what was actually your first competition? Was that the one in Abu Dhabi you were referring to?
My first competition was Copa de Hong Kong, and I
Oh
think
yeah.
it was December 2012. And my original teacher at the time in Hong Kong was Rodrigo Caporal of Atos Hong Kong, and I really didn't want to compete at the time. Actually, I was like, I haven't really been training that long, like because I started jiu-jitsu in July 2012. Bear in mind, right?
Oh yeah.
And at the time that when I got to Hong Kong, it was roughly maybe more so like October. So
Yeah.
I had been training for a couple of months, and then it was already he implanted the idea of me competing at Copa de Hong Kong within like the first month and a half of joining the gym, and I was like, oh yes, I'll think about it. I'm not so sure, maybe I should train a little bit more. I'm like, no man, you go train, you go compete at Copa de Hong Kong. I was like, he's not going to take no for one answer pretty much. So I was like, you know what, okay, I'm just going to compete. But then I didn't know that it was going to be mixed whites and blue belt as well, So then I was like, oh my God, this guy, he didn't fill me in the entire picture,
Yeah.
Overall, it was a positive experience. It wasn't a bad experience, but I was a very different competitor from that competition to today, for sure. I was so pumped up on adrenaline that, firstly, everybody knows me as a guard player mainly. I remember I just had so much adrenaline in my body. I grabbed the girl in front of me and I literally just pushed her over to make her fall down. It wasn't really even a proper takedown, but it was just crazy. Like when I have flashbacks, I was like, oh my God, how was my jiu-jitsu like that?
Do we find
yeah,
this
no,
tournament on YouTube as well?
There's some photos that exist. I really hope that the videos don't exist anymore.
Yeah.
Maybe on like some of my old team's video cameras or something,
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it was a very positive experience because I did end up getting to fight blue belts already, and it was more also the realization at the time that I was like, oh, I mean, I lost to some of them in the end, but I did fairly well for someone who was only like training less than 6 months at the time,
Yeah.
And after that, that was a bit the fuel to want to try and enter the Abu Dhabi Pro because in 2013, white belts were still allowed to compete. So essentially, I was doing the white belt worlds in Abu Dhabi, which was a great honor at the time. The whole production in Abu Dhabi it's an unparalleled experience. Like you really feel it's like the Olympics.
Yeah. Oh. Go, you still here?
Okay, we good, right?
I think we're back again. Perfect. Yeah. I lost you on the Olympics.
No
IBJJF Olympics. Yeah, I think my Wi-Fi.
Yeah, no, it's
got a very poor connection here.
Don't worry. So we always experience technical difficulties on Zoom.
Yeah. I think Zoom is one of those platforms who has been used a lot nowadays, right? So
I can't imagine. Like I would love to see the statistics for how many downloads has occurred in the last month or so just for Zoom.
Yeah.
But yeah, it really is like the Olympics of Jiu-Jitsu. Just like the way that the film production and the way that even how they call the athletes onto the mat, it's just completely different from the IBJJF equivalent in California. You really feel almost like royalty in a way,
Yeah.
And it just shows like the amount of attention that the UAE puts into jiu-jitsu it's really immense. Like they have jiu-jitsu even in the school curriculum for kids in primary schools and high schools. So already within your physical education program, they will be learning jiu-jitsu. Like that is so great. I wish that I have jiu-jitsu in high school.
Yeah, exactly.
Similar like how the Americans have wrestling in high school. Like the Emirate counties all have jiu-jitsu. It's just great.
That's great. In Holland, we don't have any martial arts during schoolings, primary, secondary. It's
Oh, really?
No, none of that.
Not even like judo or taekwondo?
No. I mean, I think you can. A lot of kids they do it. The school
Outside.
but but they do that outside. Yeah. Which is a waste, right? Because my daughter, and my son, I would say as well, they have been doing judo from 4 years old. She's now 10. She really likes it. And they want to come as well now, doing jiu-jitsu with us. So I take them on open mats and try to take them as much as I can nowadays. So what age is?
That's so good.
What age would be the perfect age for a kid to go into jiu-jitsu?
I mean, like, I think I've heard a lot of people talk about this, and I think, honestly, it's down to personal preference. I think being able to allow your child to develop certain gymnastic skills, certain basic movement skills that don't necessarily involve resistance would be like, if I had a kid, I would say that I would put them into gymnastics or some sort of like ballet or dance to understand how to move their body by themselves first. Just because, I think even with adults who come into learning the art, it's really difficult to understand how to move your body on the floor. Like, firstly, it's very awkward. And many people don't know how to move their body by themselves, let alone with another person. So I think by allowing yourself to build this dialogue with your body, whether through gymnastics or through dance, you already build this understanding of how to organize your body. When you understand how to organize your body, you naturally get injured less. When you don't know how to organize your body, you can put your hand in a certain orientation and then you injure yourself, And what I've seen a lot of jiu-jitsu parents do, like, I think good jiu-jitsu parents, they put their kids into gymnastics first, and then they start to drip in the jiu-jitsu when they're a little bit older. So they already have a certain skill set, they move well, they're not clumsy, and there's a certain attention span too. You put your kid into jiu-jitsu too early, it's just very difficult because there's so much information overload, like you have to focus on yourself, you have to focus on your partner, and then you have to focus on the teacher, and if the teacher is boring, and then you lost the attention. There's so many. But I think like in traditional ballet and classic ballet or in gymnastics, they really build a certain type of discipline to already you listen to the teacher. Everybody else has to listen, so you're kind of like, oh, okay, my classmates are doing this, I should listen to.
I rather did it. Exactly. So you are doing a lot of movements as well, right? You're doing dancing and is that the MoveNet thing you're doing, or is it a different type of movement? Because I see you a lot of weird dances and moves you make. So where's that coming from?
Pretty much like let's explore. Okay, I'll explain. When we consider this word movement, let's not make it into a label. Like, movement is movement. And I think what some famous movement teachers, for example, like even like Ido Portal, like it's more a marketing thing to put a label like movements and say movement culture to make it sound sexy, but in reality, walking is movement, and running is movement, and eating is movement. There's so many daily activities that it's just movement, dance is just movement. So when someone goes into jiu-jitsu with a dance background and they say, hey, like, I've seen this move before, like I do too in dance, it's because it's just movement. It's just a different expression movement, and it has a different function, right? Like in dance, things tend to be more aesthetic. It's essentially purposeless. But in jiu-jitsu, the aesthetic is almost secondary. The primary aim is that we have to get somewhere. Like, we have to get past the hip plan, or we have to isolate an arm, we have to isolate the head. It's more functional, because it's self-defense, it's combat. So don't allow me to go on too many tangents, but so I generally think the more ways you can expose yourself to different movements, so we can categorize it even like a stepping movement or a swinging movement or an arching movement. The more you can familiarize your body with different movement patterns, number one, you become a more diverse mover, you become more unpredictable, and then you start to understand just in general how to move around somebody else's body better, which essentially is our aim in jiu-jitsu. If I don't understand in its entirety how to move my own body, how am I going to understand how to move around your body? Because I don't know my full capabilities yet, right? If I can't understand my full capability, I'm definitely not going to understand what you're capable of doing. So I feel by trying to practice more solo orientated activities, I just better understand how to read my partner, and I'm never really surprised by what could happen in a jiu-jitsu exchange. And the reason for like all the more weird styles of dancing, it's more the concept of improvising, like the idea, like how can you continue to create without stopping, without pausing, because this is a very common thing for a lot of beginners or novices in jiu-jitsu, that, you know, we see people freeze or they hesitate. You know, there's a sudden break or like a staccato kind of movement all of a sudden. So, yeah, exactly.
So where do you get the inspiration from these movements?
I mean, like, of course, I have seen certain teachers like Ido Portal and Fighting Monkey, another movement practice that has become very popular in the last couple of years and stuff. I'm trying to understand, like, what is the intention of people developing these disciplines, you know, like rather these practices. And again, it really comes down to, mainly from what I can see from these teachers, is understanding the human body better in order to become better movers or better humans in general. Because I think it's always linked, you know, if you want to become a better mover, you're trying to become better in almost every aspect of your life. It's not really something isolated, you know, like if you train your body, you should aim to train your mind too. I think the inspiration also partially came from the injury that I spoke to you about in 2015. That I didn't mention this detail earlier, but that afternoon before I got injured, I remember saying to myself in my head, I'm really tired today. I think maybe I should rest. I think I could get injured if I train again today. And then when I actually got injured that evening, I was just like gritting my teeth. I was like, man, like I should have just like listened to the gut instinct, you know? And it's because, again, like most people glamorize going harder, doing more, the grind mentality, rather than like trying to find a smarter way to train with less volume, less quantity, but like whatever time that you do invest is really well spent. You know, like rather than mindlessly drilling something that your teacher told you to do, you really think about, where are the holes in my game? Like, where are the gaps in my knowledge? Like, what do I actually need to work on? And that would be much better time spent. In your practice. So like, especially in the times where I was away from California or away from New York, and I have less access to high level training partners, I don't necessarily see the point to train all the time, or more so train jiu-jitsu, because it just wouldn't necessarily always be the most productive use of my time. So I thought, if I look to cross training, there's still ways that I can develop my skill set, develop my understanding of movement, my own body, like the relationship of my body to the floor, the relationship between me and another person, like in dance, like through understanding things, even in partner dance, like I still have to understand how to collaborate in movement with another person, you know? Whereas in jiu-jitsu, you're collaborating with a resistance, you know? So I think the first step before resistance is, how do you move with someone else without resistance? So this idea that I've even spoken about in the workshops is starting from a place of collaboration, of little resistance or no resistance even, and slowly, incrementally increasing, right? Because that gives us a better ability to really understand the move and to further refine it bit by bit. Rather, if I start from a place of high resistance, we always elicit a very high stress environment. So really being able to do a more solo practice, like with dance and stuff, allowed me this more introspective process too, you know, because I'm not constantly thinking about, oh, what's my partner doing? I have enough time and space to also feel like, if I do this in relationship to my partner, because sometimes I don't have a partner as a point of reference in these solo movement drills or these improvisations. So it means I have to ask myself a lot of questions because I don't have someone else for feedback, you know?
Yeah.
That was pretty much the inspiration, you know?
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah. So you started doing these movements, as an addition to your jiu-jitsu training. I guess
it's a way to keep it more sustainable, which I think is the bottom line, you know? Like, especially if, let's say, like in Hong Kong, a lot of my training partners, I would say, like, even at the time when I was 18, majority of my partners were in their late 30s, early 40s. And they can't afford to train in the way that I was training. You know, like I was training 2-3 times a day, plus lifting, plus this, plus that. Like cumulatively, I was training like 7-8 hours a day, you know, within the mixture of jiu-jitsu and lifting or like other cardio stuff. But they can't do that, firstly, because they have a proper job too. But you know, like if they do that, they can't recover the next day, you know, like the next day they're like, I need a wheelchair and I can't train for another 3 days, you know? So in order to create a more sustainable practice, how can you train in a way that still benefits you, that you don't have to batter your body every day, and that we don't have to create this stereotype of all jiu-jitsu people are broken people, you know? It's like you don't need history to repeat itself. If you don't want to be injured, then do something about it. Like there's something deficient in your practice, or you're doing too much. How do you play with that? Because like people don't like to say, you're doing too much, especially in terms of a physical discipline. I think it's a very difficult thing to hear, you know, like I say that because personally I hate it when people tell me I'm doing too much.
Yeah, exactly.
You know? But like, if you can reframe it for me in a way that's more digestible, then I'm like, okay, like I see your point. Like it's not optimal here. And like instead of like doing this more, I can try and do this instead of like, instead of doing X, I'll do Y. Because Y will benefit me more here, and in the long term, I'll actually see more gains, or like I'll advance at a faster rate, rather than being stubborn about it to the point of like it could be damaging. You know?
So in terms of recovery, you have any supplements you're using on a day? Is there any special supplement?
I honestly think like over the years, like from the age of 18 to 22, I used a lot of supplements, and then I completely went off of everything. Well, I think, especially in the supplement industry, it's just, at the time, I would say it was one of the most corrupt things I've ever seen, you know, and we all kind of buy into it because it's just like, if this will make me recover quicker, then I'm definitely going to take it, you know? Everybody's just kind of looking for that quick fix or hack, like how do you recover more? But that really is nothing better than good sleep, a well-balanced diet, hydrating well. Like if anything, I highly recommend like electrolytes, magnesium if you really need to supplement.
What about cold treatments? Cryotherapy or cold baths or saunas or any of that?
I think if you can afford to do it, then I definitely think it's something that you should not be afraid to invest into. How I would frame it for people is, a lot of people tell me, I don't want to go to the physio, or I don't want to do this, I don't want to pay for that because you know, it's expensive. But then it's even more expensive when you get an injury and then you're sidelined for a couple of months, you know, and then you have to pay for the physio anyway at that point, you know. It's just all from the perspective of you want to do post rehab or prehab, you know. There's the rehab and the prehab, and you're better off doing more prehab than going, I hurt myself and it's going to take much longer for me to be pain-free now and stuff. I highly recommend trying to see a physio every now and then, or at least a sports massage therapist. There's so many different sorts of practitioners you can see, you know, that I think it's more down to really trying a bit of everything at first if you have never done it before. Like there's a difference between a chiropractor or osteopath and a physio, and they all do slightly different things. They're very, very similar, but you would have to, I highly recommend trying each of these practitioners first before deciding, oh, I only see an osteo. Because the funny thing between these three professions, they will all say that they're the best. Osteos will say that chiros are crazy. And then chiros will say that physios are, they're not as good as us, you know? So I highly recommend that you try more of a mixed modality approach if you can. Cryotherapy, again, it's something that you should try. A lot of these things, if you believe in it, they work. The placebo effect is so real. But
yeah, that is true.
I think there's like a lot of literature on things like ice baths and like taking contrast showers and stuff. Even something as simple as breath work is great for recovery, you know? Breath work, meditation, really try to manage your stress levels, the cortisol and stuff. Like, these are very simple ways. Also, it's very inexpensive to breathe. So it's really worth a shot.
I will be speaking next week with an official Wim Hof coach, I would say. So she's into breathing and, you know, cold treatments and ice baths and all that stuff. So yeah, breathing is a big thing as well.
I mean, these are things provided by nature, you know,
and exactly.
I think especially if you're limited in resources, it's something that's really great to just try out, especially in this time, you know, like where people are much more stressed out than before.
Take a cold shower and walk barefoot and, you know, do these simple things. That's already good as well, right?
Absolutely. I mean, just hearing you say it, it's very refreshing and relaxing to my mind.
yeah, exactly. So hey, Margot, so where are you 10 years from now? Are you still traveling a lot? Obviously, jiu-jitsu, visiting Rotterdam as much as you can, of course.
Absolutely visiting Rotterdam, yes. 10 years from now, wow. I mean, I would never say that I will quit jiu-jitsu, you know? Like I have a certain timeline for myself in the sport, and I don't necessarily, I don't want to have like this big retirement like some of these athletes do. Like, oh, I'm retiring. Like, you know, like GSP, like when he went out, he's like, oh, I'm retiring, and like then come back.
Come back again.
Like, I'm just like gonna like, it's more like a pause, if anything. I'm really interested in trying to explore other parts of my artistry and stuff. Like whether that will end up being like acting or like dancing and stuff. There's other things that I do want to explore and give a little bit more time. I don't know if that will really be in 10 years or maybe more so in the next 5 years.
Okay.
But I hope to be much more.
Say that again.
Be more like, I think maybe not necessarily like a Danaher of jiu-jitsu, but like in my own way, like a very wizened sage in the jiu-jitsu community. I perhaps like, I think I would like to dive into another field, you know, like maybe I would like revisit the education project that I was telling you about.
Oh yeah,
I would like to have a impact, you know, and not just so limited to the jiu-jitsu community. That's we're still quite niche, you know. The sport is growing, but I think like I have a lot more visions outside of the jiu-jitsu community and stuff too. So I like to see like where that goes in the coming years too.
Yeah, well, that sounds good. Most probably you're still traveling a lot there by then. So where are you planning settling? Will that be the Far East or Europe? Will you stay in the US?
Oh, that's a hard question, but I don't know where I'm going to settle. Right now, I would say I'm like very comfortable in New York. It's just a little bit more the situation with the COVID and stuff. That I just kind of want to be somewhere that I don't feel super restricted. But you know, like it's just something that all of us need to accept in this time. That you know, there are restrictions, and then we have to just cooperate as a community in order to manage this little crisis, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I'm not sure about the Far East. Like, I would maybe think, I don't know, it's an age range, you know? Because, like, I feel like being on an island would be really nice, like, much, much later on in life.
Yeah.
But, like, if you put me on an island now, I'm going to go fucking crazy. So I cannot.
yeah. But still, Hong Kong, I mean, it's...
like Berlin or something.
Berlin?
Hong Kong's still crazy right now. Yeah, no, I really like the life in Germany, to be honest.
Oh yeah, it's close to Holland.
But I don't know if it's because I'm a little bit. Yes, it is very close to Holland. I don't know if it's a little bit because I'm a little bit biased to the circle of people that I socialize with over there, I think, and because of the more recent interest in dance, you know, like I feel like I have a lot of there's a lot of creative energy around there, you know, and a lot of people that I can engage with, and like I can engage in certain types of discussion and stuff. But of course, you know, now with Zoom, I don't feel like I have to go anywhere. I just use Zoom. I'm like, hey, what's up, man? Just go straight to Berlin, the computer. It's like, okay.
Yeah, it makes it so easy.
Actually, you know.
Hey, so Margot, I know you have to go, right? In a few minutes, you have to jump into, I believe, another call. So, is there any question I forgot to ask? Anything you wanna?
I don't know. Do you have anything?
Anything you wanna share, or?
It's like when am I coming back to Rotterdam? Is your question?
Yeah. Summertime, right? But I would say it's now the weather here is perfect as well. Of course, you're not allowed to travel, but
I'm jealous. I'm jealous of the good weather.
Yeah, you're planning to visit Europe or Holland. What is it? Summertime or?
I mean, I think that this is very conditional on the current global situation, but I have a couple of options. I do actually need to leave the country at the end of May due to visa restrictions and stuff. One option was actually to go to Sweden. Because one of my friends, who's also like a great online teacher, maybe you've seen him on my Instagram, perhaps, John Thomas. So perhaps we will coordinate over there, since it's a little bit more unrestricted over there. Otherwise, I will see, just see what happens with time. Of course, I will let you know whenever I come to Europe. You know that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that would be cool. That would be cool. Okay, Margot, I think I have to let you go. I appreciate you taking the time, and
absolutely, it was my pleasure to take the call.
I hope we meet soon again once the whole COVID situation is in the rear mirror. And
absolutely, and you know, if there's any other questions that you have or other people have, we can always do this again. It's absolutely no problem. It's always a pleasure to share, especially like if there's a particular topic, whether it's jiu-jitsu or movement or schooling. Like even culture, like I think the reason why I talk so much about like the initial concept of nomadic idea was really linked to like the more you can immerse yourself in different cultures, you also understand people in different ways. And I think what jiu-jitsu is really all about is really understanding each person better. Like, of course, through a movement lens, but you really understand like, they move in this way, perhaps because their personality is also like that. You know, they're a little bit more like impulsive, so they really like go for submissions like right off the bat. Whereas my approach is a little bit more like, I'm a bit more tentative. Like I take step-by-step conservative moves. Like even though I may look fast and speedy in certain transitions, like I'm very methodical and step-by-step. I would never really I would never like really jump into a submission when you actually see me like rolling in a like a competition context, at least.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. But you've been as well to the university where they taught you that think process, I guess, as well, right? As an engineer.
Yeah, of course. But I try and blend the approach a little bit too, you know, because sometimes it's a step-by-step is more of a way to maintain this certain mentality that, again, that I was detailing to you. I can feel confident that I won't be nervous because I know that somebody can't pass me or they can't sub me. So the reason why I go step by step, it's like a safety checkpoint, you know. I go from step 1 to step 2, but they're all very short steps that allows me to maintain this certain confidence. But within those steps, I also have my other creative solutions, you know.
We have
like plan A was this, I can go this way. But yes, again, Bob, it was a pleasure talking. Thank you for
I appreciate it. As one of the first few guests, actually. I'm launching my second episode actually tomorrow.
Perfect.
Yeah, so I guess that's the COVID thing. I've been thinking about doing a podcast for a long time, but every time you have an excuse, right, not doing it. So now I thought, what's the excuse?
Now you're executing. That's great.
Sitting at home. Yeah. So I actually had a really cool episode. I recorded it. What is it today? Wednesday today, right? Monday. So did you read the book Eating Smoke from Chris Thrall?
I haven't yet. It's been on my list.
Yeah, that's the guy actually who joined the Royal Marines in the UK, and then basically moved to Hong Kong in '96 to find his fortune. And within 6 months, he was addicted to crystal meth and working for the 14K.
Oh, that's crazy.
Riots and that was an interesting story for sure. And I was reading his book, right? I think he launched his book already in 2011. So I was reading his book and I thought, shit, let's just reach out to him, you know, see if he's interested. And yeah, he was. And
that's amazing.
Yeah. So let's see. I'm speaking.
I look forward to tuning into that episode too.
Say it again?
I said I look forward to tuning into that episode.
Yeah, exactly. I will be launching it tomorrow. So anyway, Margot, I really enjoy you taking the time, and good luck in New York. And I would love
Thank
to
you
soon again in Europe. Stay safe and healthy, and we speak soon then.
Absolutely. Thank you, Bob.
All right.
Have a good day.
Yeah, same to you. Bye-bye.